our headlines tonight. President Park Geun-hye nominates a former journalist as her new prime minister and a career diplomat as the new intelligence agency chief. The trial of the captain and crew of the doomed Sewol-ho ferry opens on this Tuesday. All eyes are on whether they'll be charged with homicide. $685 billion. That is the amount of outstanding household lending by local lenders and non-banking institutions as of end of April in this country. Early edition begins now.
I see trees of green, red
늘 남편 먼저,
I see them
늘 자식 먼저.
for me and
레이디 퍼스트라는 말을 믿고 살아온 당신. 오늘만큼은 세상 누구보다 당신이 먼저입니다.
한 분 한 분 특별하게 모시겠습니다.
Excellence in Flight, Korean Air.
It is 5 a.m. in New York, 6 a.m. in Sao Paulo, and 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 10th of June here in Korea. Hello, this is Early Edition at 6, live from Seoul. I'm Moon Geon-hye.
And I'm Daniel Che. Thank you for joining us. President Park Geun-hye has finally made her prime minister nomination.
Right, following days of speculation, the Korean leader tapped a career journalist to be her new prime minister and a career diplomat to head the state intelligence agency.
Tuesday's nominations are expected to accelerate the president's reform drive. Our Choi Yu-sun starts us off.
On Tuesday, the presidential office announced that Moon Chang-guk, the former editor-in-chief of the Chungang Daily and head of the Korea News Editors Association, had been nominated as the new prime minister. The presidential spokesperson said the nominee's integrity as a journalist was highly valued, as the new prime minister will be the one leading government restructuring and instituting sweeping reforms in the aftermath of April's ferry disaster.
With his remarkable insight and driving force, the nominee is expected to push forward with reforms in public service and rooting out wrongful practices in our society.
Tuesday's nomination comes nearly 2 weeks after President Park's first nominee An Dae-hee withdrew amid controversy over his post-retirement earnings. Since An's resignation, the presidential office is known to have tightened the personnel verification process and focused on finding a reform-minded figure with ethical integrity. As for the head of the National Intelligence Service, current ambassador to Japan Lee Byung-gi was named. The career diplomat's working style and deep understanding of intelligence and security at home and abroad were cited in his nomination.
The nominee is considered the right person to fulfill the intelligence agency's duties and carry out reforms amid current tensions between the two Koreas.
Now that a new prime minister nominee has been named, the much-anticipated reshuffles within the cabinet and presidential office are expected to gain momentum and will likely take place after President Park returns from a trip to Central Asia next week. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
So President Park's new nomination of a former journalist for Prime Minister Moon Chang-guk is definitely not among the names that have been mentioned as a potential prime minister to be.
Now let's get some analysis for that. That is, we are joined live in the studio by a political commentator, Dr. Lee Young-jak.
Dr. Lee, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Now, first of all, your overall impression of President Park Geun-hye's prime minister nomination pick today. I mean, was this in any way expected? What can we read into today's decision?
First, this is a surprise. I think everybody was surprised. There was some expectation that somebody from his home region may be picked, but he was not. He was not one of the in the list. Being a journalist, he can talk straight to president. I think that then may be his strongest point. And the president has been accused that she would not listen to anybody. So by picking a journalist, she can sort of create an image. I will listen to anybody. In fact, that when she was still in the National Assembly, Mr. Moon wrote a piece critical of at the time Miss Park because of lame duck. Power is moving from sitting president to next president, and he was saying that that's not a good phenomenon.
This was before she was elected as president.
That's right, and so and then this Mr. Moon he has been critical of left and right, more left than right, but he was quite critical of some of the leftist movement and so on. So he can criticize. I think he can talk straight to President Park.
So political neutrality also played a key role in this.
But I don't think he will be classified as a neutralist. He will be viewed more as a conservative.
Okay. Well, I think she's reaching into a different page from her playbook, President Park Geun-hye, that is.
Very
and someone more of a straight arrow this time compared to the previous candidates. So this time the big question is, will he endure the test? He's going to be grilled quite a lot.
He will be grilled for being conservative. I think what he wrote in the past, he has written many pieces in the past, and opposition party people are scrutinizing what he has been writing, and perhaps he will be attacked on his views expressed in this writing and that writing. But I don't think that will disqualify him, so unless he is involved in any financial scandal or something.
So other than possible, or rather, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt at this point. But some of his works in the past in black and white might come and haunt him today.
But not as far as there's no scandal, that's fine. I mean, his political view should not derail his appointment.
So he won't be providing any arsenal weapons to his naysayers.
All right, let's move on to the president's nomination of South Korean ambassador to Japan, Lee Byung-gi, as her new chief of the National Intelligence Service. What's your assessment there?
That is a very excellent move. In the past, the defense, national security, and national intelligence, those positions were all occupied by the military academy graduates. And so their way of thinking are too homogeneous. But nowadays they need a more diverse way of looking at the world, and the world is so diverse, so they need some diversities. And I hope that Mr. Lee will provide that very badly necessary diversities into national security and defense.
Breath of fresh air in the NIS, so hopefully it'll be a tough job for him, though, trying to communicate with all those people with military background.
Yeah, but he's been the deputy chief of the service in the past, and so he has experience.
And he has been around.
Yeah.
Well, the cabinet reshuffle, this looks like a prelude to more things to come. How extensive of a reshuffling can we expect, and what kind of factors should we take into consideration when it comes to the president naming her new ministers?
I think she will wait for the approval of a new nominee. At least they have to take some kind of proper forms, and this prime minister has to make a recommendation to the president, and president approves the recommendation, and then name will be submitted to National Assembly. So there's a sort of proper process you have to follow, and being a proper person, President Park will wait for the nomination going through the National Assembly.
Well, we definitely hope that this time around it will be all smooth sailing so that we can actually move forward with the state of affairs here in Korea.
Yes,
Dr. Lee Young-jae, thank you so much for speaking with us this evening.
You're welcome.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life, talking with you on air and online, connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gon-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Now, the trial of the captain and crew of the Korean ferry that sank almost 2 months ago, causing the death of almost 300 passengers, began this Tuesday with the accused facing the families of the victims. And as our Connie Kim reports, the first day of hearings was emotionally charged.
The 15 crew members of the ill-fated Sewol-ho ferry are on trial this Tuesday for fleeing the sinking ship and leaving hundreds of passengers behind. Captain Lee Jun-suk and 3 other senior crew members are charged with murder by willful negligence. The rest are charged with negligence that led to the death of hundreds of people. The crew, among the first to get off the ferry, are accused of making no attempt to rescue passengers. With most of the crew members partially admitting to negligence, the focus of the trial is whether the 4 senior crew members will be found guilty of murder.
If the murder out of willful negligence is to be upheld, the causal relationship must be proved that passengers died because the crew members did not rescue them, although they were aware of the dangers of death the passengers faced.
On this first day of the trial at the Gwangju District Court, prosecutors and the defense lawyers laid out their respective cases and applied for evidence to be submitted. While the prosecutor was reading the charges against the crew members, there were silent pauses in the gallery and some victims' families were visibly shaken. Some shouted out that their children could have survived had announcements to evacuate the vessel been made. The prosecution says they have secured video footage and communication logs between the ferry and the vessel control tower as evidence to back their charges. Of the 15 defendants, only one has managed to find a private defense attorney. The others will be represented by public defenders. The trial is being broadcast live in another courtroom for relatives and others who can't be in the main courtroom. In the event that Tanwon High School students who are victims of the ferry disaster testify, they will do so from there. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, this Sewol-ho ferry disaster is being blamed on a number of things, one of which is the practice of collusive ties between the government and the industries they're meant to regulate. And while changes have been promised, they are being met with resistance from special interest groups. Our Kim Young-gil explains.
Retired bureaucrats in Korea have long enjoyed the luxury of finding employment in firms and organizations that have direct links to their former posts. President Park Geun-hye's first choice for new Prime Minister An Dae-hee ran into trouble for that very reason, withdrawing his nomination last month after it was revealed he made some $1.5 million as a lawyer in less than 6 months, after retiring as a former Supreme Court justice. President Park has vowed to end the era of cozy ties between bureaucrats and the industries and companies they regulate, and has pledged reforms. But the changes are not coming easily. The revised Public Service Ethics Act of 2011 states that the government's Public Ethics Committee must screen any former high-ranking government official that wants to work at a company or public institution. But the act exempts lawyers, certified public accountants, and tax accountants from the screening process. There have been calls to close the loophole, but in a recent pre-announcement of revised legislation, the 3 groups are still exempt.
The government needs to submit the revised Public Service Ethics Act to the National Assembly so that we can deliberate on it and make changes to the necessary clauses.
Opposition party lawmakers on the Parliamentary Public Administration Committee say they have been trying to have the clause removed, only to be met with resistance from related interest groups. Although President Park had vocalized a strong will to end the close ties between the government and the industries they are meant to oversee, legislation that would impose greater restrictions on the practice remains in limbo. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Well, new evidence has emerged that shows the Japanese government acknowledged decades ago that its claims to the Korea-controlled Dokdo Island were not worth taking to the International Court of Justice, as it is pushing to do now. Now, despite this, the current administration in Japan continues to threaten to take the case to The Hague. Our UDN has the details.
A secret government report dating back to 1962 shows Japan knew back then that its claim to the Korea-controlled Dokdo Island was not a case that could be brought to the International Court of Justice. In the report recently released by a civic group in Japan, Tokyo's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said the Dokdo issue cannot be categorized as an international dispute, as it arose before Japan announced its compulsory jurisdiction over the island in 1958. The document added that territorial disputes only apply between countries that claim compulsory jurisdiction, but since Korea did not, it said the Dokdo issue cannot be deemed a territorial dispute. The transcript of a closed-door meeting between the then director of the Central Intelligence Agency of Korea, Kim Jong-pil, and former Japanese Prime Minister Hayato Ikeda in 1952 has also been made public. Ikeda told Kim that the issue should be left alone since Korea is effectively in control of Dokdo Island.
This document proves Japan is making its claim while it knew from the very beginning that it was completely unjust.
The civic group wants to bring lawsuits against the Japanese government to make public documents related to bilateral talks between Korea and Japan to bring light to historical facts. Yurian, Arirang News.
Well, let's shift our focus a little bit. South Korea has given a German needle company the green light to open up shop at the Inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex. Seoul's Unification Ministry announced today that Groß Bekerz submitted an application last week asking to supply needles to textile factories operating within the business park. It will mark the first time for a foreign company to do business at Kaesong. The ministry said 2 foreign manufacturers have also shown interest in opening up factories in Kaesong, but added that concerns about the stability of the factory zone seems to be holding the companies back. South Korea on Monday proposed a meeting with North Korean officials on June 19th to discuss the management of the Kaesong complex, but the request has so far gone unanswered. Korea's mounting household debt threatens to stunt the nation's economic recovery. Household loans extended by local financial institutions hit a record high for the 3rd straight month in April. The Bank of Korea said Tuesday that the figure stood at around $680 billion as of the end of the month. That's up nearly $5 billion from March. But the bank tempered concerns over the level of household debt, saying the rise stems from strong home transactions, which exceeded the 92,000 mark in April, up by around 3,000 from a month earlier. Hundreds of Korean credit card and banking executives are staring down the barrel of severe disciplinary action for mismanagement. According to the Financial Supervisory Service on Tuesday, the list includes about 300 people, some of which are the chiefs of large financial firms like KB Kookmin, Citibank, and Shinhan Bank. The executives are being held accountable for various financial troubles at the institutions, which includes a massive data leak last year and illegal loans. The scope of the disciplinary actions will be decided on June 26th by a committee from Korea's financial watchdog. Officials say they've never had this many people facing disciplinary action in one single case before. Shifting gears to a different story, Korean singer Psy is back, and has he done it again? We'll see. Gangnam Style took the world by storm 2 summers ago, and his latest track, Hangover, has burst out of the gate since being released this week. Our Shin Se-min reports.
14 million viewers and counting. In less than 1 day, Psy's new music video Hangover has certainly garnered interest on YouTube. It features Psy and American hip-hop artist Snoop Dogg delving into Korea's unique drinking culture and shows them visiting a singing room, drinking hangover remedies, visiting a sauna, and of course, downing soju and beer. Any success with this video will be judged against the one that broke Psy out as an international star in 2012. Since it was released, Gangnam Style has racked up over 2 billion views on YouTube, earning the title as the most watched clip of all time on the video sharing site. And according to the British magazine The Economist, the time spent by all of us watching that video could have been used for other pursuits. The time spent watching the 4-minute, 12-second video over 2 billion times equals 140 million hours or 16,000 years. Had Gangnam Style viewers not been watching the video, The Economist says they could have built 3 ships or constructed 20 Empire State Buildings. Will we be talking about Hangover in the same way in a few years? Only time will tell, but Psy isn't resting on his laurels. He will release another single called Daddy this summer. 신세민, Arirang News.
Wow, 20 Empire State Buildings, huh? Well, the countdown has begun for the 2014 FIFA World Cup in Brazil, but the mood is far from joyous in Sao Paulo as protests against the tournament are leaving many with a sour taste in their mouths.
Our Connie Lee gives us an overview of what it looks like in the Latin American country with just 3 days to go until kickoff.
In Brazil's biggest city of Sao Paulo, metro workers entered their 5th day of protest on Monday, even after a court ruled their strike illegal. Riot police armed with tear gas had to confront the striking workers, who have reduced their demands to a 12% pay raise, lower than the previous 35%. Major subway lines have been closed since last Thursday, causing chaos, traffic jams, and uncertainty just days before the World Cup.
I think it's wrong. This shows how Brazil is. We do not have organization. We don't have anything, no patience. This is a country that will host the World Cup. Congratulations.
The city's mayor says officials are making every effort to end the strike.
We are seeking the solution not just for the upcoming big event, but as a right of the workers of Sao Paulo to have a judicial decision fulfilled so that normalcy can return to the city.
Leading up to the World Cup, the metro strike is just the latest in a string of protests by public workers. In Rio de Janeiro, outside a World Cup media center, teachers protested and rallied. Using the backdrop of international attention and the tens of billions of dollars spent by Brazil's government on the tournament, public workers have been demanding large pay raises. Thousands of other city employees, including police and bus drivers in different host cities, have also gone on strike in the weeks leading up to the World Cup. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
You know, by the feel of things, summer is definitely approaching. So let's go over to our Michelle to ask her whether this is, in fact, we are in summer.
Well, the weather today was looking up until a few hours ago when sporadic showers began here in the capital.
So, Michelle, how long are we expecting the rain?
Well, rain is in the forecast all week due to the instability in the atmosphere, and it's being caused by the rise of the warm surface air, which is replacing the cooler air up above. And tomorrow we're expecting afternoon showers nationwide, while the rest of the nation day is looking cloudy and warm with highs mostly in the mid to high 20s. Now going over to our temperature readings, Seoul will top out at 20 before reaching up to 28 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will peak up to 25 and 23 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island will top out at 23, Dokdo at 18, while Mangkungang tops out at 19. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
Thank you for that, Michelle. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for watching. For our viewers in Korea, have a wonderful rest of the evening. This has been Daniel Che.
And I'm Moon Ga-young. To those of you in other parts of the world, have a great start to your day, and we hope to see you right back here, same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.